Hi, good morning everyone. I hope you have studied various chemical process in your previous classes. Can you recall few of them here? Yes, yourself. Formation of water. Yes, very good. Please be seated. When hydrogen is made react with a oxygen, it gives a water. Of course, under suitable reaction conditions. Fine. Can you get one more example for the chemical process? Formation of sodium chloride. Very good. Please be seated. When sodium is made react with a chlorine, it gives a sodium chloride. Fine. Now, let us consider these two chemical reactions. Here, the atoms share or transfers the electrons to form a new chemical compound, leaving the atomic nuclei largely unaffected. That means the electrons which are present in the atoms are involved in the chemical reaction to form a new compound, but not the nucleons. Now let us consider, is it possible to bring the changes in the atomic nuclei? That means, is it possible to convert one element into another element like carbon to nitrogen or nitrogen to oxygen? Yes, it is possible. This type of process are called nuclear reactions. That means a process which brings the changes in the atomic nuclei are called nuclear reactions. More precisely, we can define nuclear reactions like this: a process in which one or more nuclides are produced by the collision of two atomic nuclei or one atomic nucleus and a subatomic particle. Now let me consider, is there any difference between the nuclear reaction and a chemical reaction? Yes, there are few differences between the nuclear reaction and a chemical reaction. Let me consider them. The first one, the identity of the element changes in the case of nuclear reactions, but you cannot observe it in the chemical process because the elements keep their identity even in the compound. Just like water, see, hydrogen and oxygen keeps their identity even in the water. So water is made up of two hydrogen and one oxygen. It is very simple one. And the second one is the nuclear reactions associated with the release of enormous amount of energy. So the amount of energy released during the nuclear reaction is very huge when compared to the energy released during the chemical reactions. And one more important point is the rate and yield of a nuclear reaction are generally unaffected by the change in temperature, pressure and in the presence of a catalyst. Okay. So now there are two general kinds of nuclear reactions. One is nuclear decay reaction and another one is nuclear transmutation reactions. Now in this class, I am going to discuss more about the nuclear transmutation reactions. Now let me consider nuclear transmutation reactions. The discovery of radioactivity in the late 19th century showed that some nuclei spontaneously transforms into a more stable nuclei with a different number of protons and neutrons. Thereby, it produces a different element. Then, scientists were realized that it should be possible to carry out the reverse reaction, that is, converting a stable nucleus into a other nucleus by bombarding it with a subatomic particle. This kind of reactions are called nuclear transmutation reactions. So, to be particular, we can call it as induced nuclear transmutation reaction because the reaction is proceeding in the presence of a subatomic particles. The first successful nuclear transmutation reaction was carried out by Rutherford in the year 1919. He showed that the alpha particles emitted from the radium could react with the nitrogen nucleus and forms a oxygen nucleus. A proton is produced during the reaction. See, it can be written like this. So, nitrogen, it is represented as N714. 7 is the atomic number and 14 is the mass number. When it is bombarded with the alpha particle, it is represented as helium, atomic number 2 and the mass number 4. It gives rise to oxygen. The atomic number is 8 and the mass number is 17, and it emits a particle, that is proton, indicated as H11. So, we know that the Rutherford nuclear transmutation experiments led to the discovery of neutron. It is a very interesting concept, of course. Now, you consider this reaction. Here, the nitrogen is a target nucleus. It is bombarded by the alpha particle. Here, alpha particle is a projectile, and it gives a new nucleus, that is oxygen, is called a recoil nucleus, and it emits a particle, that is proton. Here it is called ejectile. So, this general nuclear transmutation reaction can be written in a condensed representation as, first you write the target nucleus, open the bracket, you write the projectile, put a comma, you write the ejectile, then you close the bracket and you mention the recoil nucleus. So, now you take this particular reaction and you try to write it in the condensed representation. So, first what we have to write? We have to write the target nucleus. Which one is the target nucleus? Nitrogen. Very good. First you write the nitrogen, then open the bracket, then what you have to write? We have to write the projectile. Very good. Which is the projectile here? Alpha. You write alpha particle, then put a comma, then we have to write the ejectile. Which is the ejectile? It is a proton. Very good. You write the proton, then you close the bracket, then you write the recoil nucleus. Which is the recoil nucleus here? It is oxygen. Very good. You write the oxygen. Okay. So, this is how we can represent the nuclear transmutation reaction in a condensed way. The nuclear transmutation reactions can be classified based on the particle used as a projectile. Here I am going to mention three important such kind of reactions. One is alpha induced reaction, the second one is proton induced reactions, and the third one is neutron induced reaction. Let me consider this reaction one by one. First one is the alpha induced reaction. In these reactions, alpha particles are absorbed by the target nucleus, which then emits the proton or neutron. Let me consider example for this. So, you take nitrogen with atomic number 7 and mass number 14. When it is bombarded with the alpha particle, it gives a oxygen, that is atomic number 8 and the mass number 17, and emits a proton. This reaction can be written in a condensed way as, first we have to write the target nucleus. Here it is the nitrogen with a mass number 14, and in the bracket we have to write the projectile and the ejectile. ಈ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ? ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಎಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಯಾವುದಿದೆ? ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ಫಾ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಇದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರೋಟಾನ್ ಎಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಬ್ರಾಕೆಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ದೆನ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ದ ರೆಸಿಡ್ಯೂಯಲ್ nuclei, or we can call it as recoil nuclei. Here it is the oxygen. So fine. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಉದಾಹರಣೆನ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. This can be written in the condensed way like this. So now you consider the second reaction, that is proton induced reactions. The fast moving proton found to give these reactions. So you consider the first reaction. You take the nitrogen, atomic number 7 and the mass number 14. When it is bombarded with the fast moving proton, so it gives a carbon nucleus with atomic number 6 and the mass number 11, and it emits alpha particle. So it can be written in a condensed way like this. So first we have to write the target nucleus. Here it is nitrogen with a mass number 14. In the bracket we have to write the projectile and the ejectile. Which are the projectile and ejectile here? So proton is the projectile and alpha particle is the ejectile. Very good. Then we have to write the recoil nucleus. So the recoil nucleus is carbon with atomic number 11. That is good. Now let me consider one more example. You take a boron with atomic number 5 and the mass number 11. When it is bombarded with the fast moving proton, it gives a carbon nucleus with atomic number 6 and the mass number 11, and it emits a neutron. Now we can write this reaction in a condensed form. So can you identify the target nucleus, projectile, ejectile and the recoil nucleus? Fine, you tell me, I will write it. ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಿ ನೀವು ನಾವು ಬರೀತೇನೆ. So very good. The first one is the target nucleus. So it is boron with a mass number 11. So in the bracket I have to mention the proton, and then yes, neutron I have to mention. Then I have to write the recoil nucleus. Here it is carbon with a mass number 11. Very good. Please be seated. Now we consider one more nuclear transmutation reaction, that is neutron induced reactions. So in these reactions, the neutrons are captured by the target nucleus, which then emits the alpha particle, a proton, etc. Now let me consider few examples for this. You take magnesium with atomic number 12 and the mass number 24. When it is bombarded with the neutron, it converts into sodium with the atomic number 11 and the mass number 24, along with the emission of proton. This reaction also can be written in a condensed way like this. So you write magnesium with a mass number 24. In the bracket you write neutron, it is a projectile, a proton which is a ejectile, and then you write the sodium with a mass number 24. It is a recoil nucleus. Now let me consider one more example. You take a boron with the atomic number 5 and the mass number 10. Then you bombard with the neutron. It gives a new nucleus, that is lithium. The atomic number is 3 and the mass number is 7, along with the emission of alpha particle. So this reaction also we can write in a condensed way like this. So these are the three important induced nuclear transmutation reactions we have to study. Now you look at this figure, which gives the relationship between the atomic mass and the binding energy per nucleons. If you carefully observe this figure, you will come to know that the elements with the mass number around 60 are found to be more stable when compared to the others. So the heavy nuclei are tend to be unstable. To get the stability, they split into a smaller atomic nuclei, and this process is called nuclear fission. That means the splitting of nucleus into a fragments is called nuclear fission, and it is associated with the release of enormous amount of energy. The first nuclear fission reaction discovered includes uranium-235. When a neutron strikes the uranium-235, which converts into uranium-236, it is an unstable nuclei. Then it splits into two fragments, one is krypton-92 and another one is barium-141, and it releases 3 neutrons with the enormous amount of energy. So now you consider this nuclear fission reactions. So when a uranium-235 is interacted with the neutron, it converts into 2 daughter nuclei and it releases 3 neutrons. So these 3 neutrons can trigger the further nuclear fission reactions. That means nodri 3 ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಾನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಮತ್ತೆ 3 ನ್ಯೂಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಫಿಷನ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇನಿಷಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಡ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಒಂದೊಂದು ನ್ಯೂಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಫಿಷನ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ 3 ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಾನ್ಗಳು ಬಿಡುಗಡೆಯಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಟೋಟಲಿ there are 9 neutrons will be produced here. Then those 9 neutrons initiates the 9 more nuclear fission reactions. So the reaction is going like this. This is called self-sustaining process. That means to say a self-sustaining process in which one reaction initiates the next is called a chain reaction. So the fission of uranium-235 is a best example for the chain reaction, and it is associated with the release of enormous amount of energy. So this nuclear fission reactions are used in the nuclear power plant to produce the power or to generate the power. Now let me consider that. Nuclear reactors, these are the devices extensively used for the production of power, where the nuclear fission reactions are carried out under the controlled conditions. The basic operating principle of a nuclear reactor in the production of a power is the nuclear chain reaction within the reactor. It produces enormous amount of heat. Now you consider this reaction. When a neutron strikes the uranium-235, it converts into a unstable uranium-236, which splits into 2 daughter nuclei with the release of enormous amount of energy. This heat energy is absorbed by the coolant and it boils the water to steam. Then the steam spins the coil of a generator and produces the electricity. Now let me consider this one, the schematic diagram of a nuclear reactor. It is essentially consisting of 4 crucial components. One is a fuel element, another one is a moderator, and one more is the control rod, and then the coolant. Let me consider one by one. The first one is the fuel element. The fissionable material used in the nuclear reactor is called a fuel. It is usually in the form of a thin rod containing a fissionable nuclei like uranium-235, uranium-238, etc. Now you consider one more component, moderators. The neutron of fairly low speed should be used to have a controlled nuclear chain reactions. So the moderators are used to slow down the speed of a fast moving neutron produced during the nuclear fission reaction. Moderators decreases the speed of a neutron by absorbing the energy but not by absorbing the neutrons. Graphite rods, heavy water or beryllium are the most commonly used moderators. Now let me consider one more important component, control rods. Control rods absorbs the neutron and stop the nuclear chain reaction to proceed further. Control rods are made up of steel containing a high percentage of cadmium or boron which can absorb the neutron. And one more important component of the nuclear reactor is the coolant. It is usually a water which circulates through the reactor core. The heat energy produced during the nuclear fission is absorbed by the coolant and it boils the water into a steam. Now look at the schematic diagram of a nuclear reactor. Here, the reactor core, pump and the steam generator are usually enclosed in a sheet which is made up of a thick concrete wall. It prevents the radiation to reach outside of the reactor. Now you consider the working of this nuclear reactor. So as we know that there is a fissionable material in the reactor core which undergoes nuclear fission and produces an enormous amount of heat. And the heat produced is absorbed by the coolant. So this hot coolant passes through the steam generator where it boils the water into a steam and gets down to a cool coolant. So this is recirculated to the reactor core through the pump. Now the steam so generated is passed through the turbines. So the force of this steam jet makes the turbines to rotate, thereby it converts heat energy into a mechanical energy. This turbine is in turn connected to the coil of a generator. So the turbine spins the coil of a generator and converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. So this is how the electricity is generated in the nuclear power plant. Now let me consider nuclear reactors in India. Tarapur Atomic Power Plant 1 was the first nuclear power plant in India. It is situated in Maharashtra since October 1969. At present, India has 22 operating reactors in 7 different nuclear power stations with an installed capacity of 6,780 megawatt. Now look at them. See, this is the table which includes the 22 nuclear reactors across the India. See, there is one in Karnataka, a power station. There is a power station in Gujarat. There are 2 power stations in Tamil Nadu, 1 power station in Uttar Pradesh, 1 power station in Rajasthan and 1 power station in Maharashtra. See, we have a Kaiga Anu Vidyut Sthavara anta Karnatakadalli ide. See, where we have 4 nuclear reactors. So the reactor of the type PHWR, it means a pressurized heavy water reactor. So it is in the Tamil Nadu we have WER, that is water energetic reactor. So in the Maharashtra we have the BWR, that is boiling water reactor. So these power stations are operated by Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. So all the power stations are operated by them only. See, there are 22 nuclear reactors with a capacity of 6,780 megawatts. So this table will give the statistics of nuclear reactors in India.
So far, I have discussed about the nuclear reactions, nuclear fission and the chain reaction, nuclear reactors and the nuclear reactors in India. Hope you understood them. Thank you very much.